Happy Sunday, y'all. Welcome to the Rest Clinic, Part 2. This is a live rest practice created for Black women and femmes to slow down, to catch our breath, to take a moment for ourselves in the midst of everything that we're experiencing. It's really been heavy. And so if you are here live, thank you so much for joining us. If you're watching the replay, thank you for watching the replay. My name is Marissa Price. I am a trauma-informed healing practitioner. I'm also a rest facilitator. So I facilitate a lot of group healing spaces, right? Like this, where we're able to come together, take a moment for ourselves, lay down, rest, remind ourselves of our inherent worth outside of these systems, right? That tell us that our worth is only attached to what we do for other people. It is a revolutionary act, right? To push back against that and to take your rest. And what a perfect time, right? Then Sunday, when we're slowing down. So thank you for being here. I see in the comments, Hollis, I'm going to make sure to be here. And thank you. You're so welcome. Thank you for this comment. And Kiana, Level Up Single Mom, please subscribe to her channel, y'all. Level Up Single Mom on YouTube. Thank you for being here. Yes. And so I have some rest practices for us to go over today, right? But we're returning to something that our bodies already know how to do, and that is rest, right? Sometimes it can feel like, do I even know what I'm doing? Is this right? Am I doing it right? Those of us who are recovering perfectionists, I'm looking somewhere else, but that's me, y'all. That's me. I'm a recovering perfectionist. I'm a recovering overachiever, right? All of these things trying to seek validation externally. And through my own healing journey, which I have shared very publicly, having to realize, right, that I'm worthy, that I can rest, that I can slow down, that the world is not going to fall apart, right, that I can establish boundaries, something that we will be talking about in my upcoming healing program, Rested and Restored. If you are someone who is a recovering people pleaser, who struggles to set boundaries that protects your energy, that preserves your peace, please join us. We start next Sunday, actually, Rested and Restored. Let me put that up on the screen. It is 30% off through today. So I'll also link it in the chat if you'd like to join us. This is a 5-week healing program for Black women and femmes to come together in a safe place, in a safe community, right? During these times to rest, to slow down, to remind ourselves how to do it. That's really the basis of this program, right? Again, if you are someone who has been told that your worth exists outside of you, it can be very difficult to come within, to allow yourself to slow down, to rest, to establish boundaries, to protect your peace, to regulate your nervous system. All these things, right, that we know logically, I would love to do them. The question is how? And that is the purpose of this program that I have put together called Rested and Restored, that will walk you through that, right? And it's a lifetime. It's meant to last a lifetime for you to incorporate these things throughout your life and also pass them on to other people who could benefit. So the link to register is here on the screen and also in the description section. But let's get into today, right? It's important to remember that you don't have to earn rest. You don't have to earn time to slow down. You don't have to perform peace, right? You get to arrive here exactly as you are today, however you're showing up, whether you're tired, curious about adopting a rest practice, maybe you don't know where to start. You're starting here, right? Maybe you're hopeful, maybe things feel heavy, maybe you're sad, maybe you're weary. Any way that you're showing up, right? There's no right way to show up. And so just allow yourself to be in this space. Once again, just a reminder, the body knows how to rest, right? We just have to reawaken this ability. If we look at babies, if we look at toddlers, they know how to rest, right? And so we too once knew how to rest, and we have to reawaken this ability within us that has tried to be like silenced and stomped out really in a lot of these environments that we find ourselves in. And so it's coming back to this practice of rest through little things, right? Like the practices that we'll go over today. And so to get started, grounding, wherever you are. Again, if you have things that make you feel comfortable, that may be beneficial. So I have my blanket. Once again, I'm on my yoga mat. I have pillows, right? I have water near me. So anything that makes you feel comfortable, safe, grounded, secure, please feel free to grab that as we enter into our practice today. If it feels okay, you can close your eyes or simply soften your gaze if that feels more comfortable. Feel where your body meets the ground. If you're sitting down, or the chair, or the bed if you're laying down. Feel how it feels to be supported, to be held, to feel safe enough to take a deep breath, right? We don't have those spaces often enough in life. And so we're having to create our own, like this one. So if it feels good, taking an inhale through your nose and exhale through your mouth. Again, taking an inhale through your nose and exhale through your mouth. Notice how that feels, right? Something I say often. Notice how it feels before you did the practice and then after you did the practice. That gives you the information, right? Is this something that you want to continue, that you want to come back to when life feels overwhelming and things feel chaotic externally? Coming back to your breath, right? To center yourself, to ground yourself, to activate all the parts of your brain, right? And just taking a pause can really be that powerful, even though it sounds simple, right? You're inviting in full oxygen to your body, right? You're grounding yourself in the present moment. You're affirming to yourself that you're safe, right? Just here in this moment. You don't have to, right, worry about the future right now. Just here in this moment. Affirming to yourself, right? I'm safe. I can breathe. I can allow myself to relax. Okay. And so let's get into the official practices for today. Again, welcome if you are here watching. This is a live rest practice created for Black women and femmes to slow down, to come back home to our bodies, to feel safe enough to pause, right? To remind ourselves that our worth exists within us. Our worth is inherent, right? And we can rest, we can slow down, we can grant ourselves permission for all these things that we're told are off limits to us so often. We're reclaiming them for ourselves in this space. And so welcome. Thank you for being here. And if you're watching the replay, thank you so much. Okay, so the first practice, rest as repetition. Right, so we're teaching our bodies that rest is okay, that rest is safe through gentle, rhythmic repetition, right? Our nervous systems learn through repetition. If we think about things like, I'll speak for myself, overthinking, catastrophizing, right? This is a pattern that has been ingrained over time. And that gives us the information. If this pattern can be ingrained, so can another one, right? So can rest, so can breath. And it's a practice of repetition, right? And so if you incorporate this as a practice over time, allowing yourself to rest in small increments and building up to the bigger increments, it's going to feel more natural and it's going to feel safe to do. Sometimes when we enter into rest, if we've been going so quickly, if we've been doing everything for everyone else, right, it can feel scary because our nervous system doesn't know that feeling of slowing down. And so we have to be gentle with ourselves, something I emphasize in my program, right? Our nervous systems respond to gentleness so much more than force, right? Which goes against a lot of the messages that we receive. throughout our lives. And so, can you talk to yourself gently? Even if you've never seen it modeled, can you adopt that for yourself as a practice of repetition? Every time you allow yourself to soften, to breathe, to relax, you're teaching your body, again, as a practice of repetition, that you're safe, right? That I can rest and I can be safe, that I can slow down and I can still be safe. It's a practice over time. So rest as repetition. Hey, Lori, thank you for joining. Thank you for being here. Brianna, hello, hello. Thank you for being here. Yes, and as you're coming in, please feel free to introduce yourselves or say hello on this Sunday so we can say hello back. Thank you so much. Okay, so we're going to do a breath practice. Inhaling for 4, holding at the top for 2, and exhaling for 6. Right? And so wherever you are, again, getting things that you need to feel comfortable. If it feels okay, right? Taking an inhale here for 4 counts. Holding at the top for 2. And then exhaling for 6. And notice how you feel. Again, we're going to do that again. Inhaling for 4, holding for 2, and then exhaling for 6. So here we're going to inhale for 4, holding for 2, and then exhale for 6. As you breathe, right, tell yourself, either out loud or silently, right, rest is safe. Rest is allowed. Rest is my birthright, right? So inhaling again for 4, holding for 2, and exhaling for 6. And as you continue to breathe at your own pace, you can continue to repeat these affirmations, right? Rest is safe. Rest is allowed. Rest is my birthright. And affirmations do a really great job of reminding us, right, of the things that we want to repeat to ourselves internally, because we get to decide, right, what this internal monologue is going to say, what we're repeating to ourselves. Are we talking to ourselves harshly? Are we giving ourselves compassion? That is within our hands. Again, even if you've never seen it modeled, even if no one ever spoke this way to you, you can speak this way to yourself. And so notice how you're doing this, right? The repetition starts to make this feel a little bit easier. And as you do this day over day over day, it's going to start to feel more natural, right? Breathing. A lot of us hold our breath within these environments that we're in, right? Which can impact things like rest and sleep because we're not getting the full oxygen about, right? So you're telling yourself as you inhale, as you exhale, I'm safe. I don't have to brace for impact in this moment, right? Inhaling here, exhaling. And you're making this a repetitive practice, which again, as I talk about somatic healing, healing of the body learns through repetition. Just like anything, right? We think about like lifting weights, right? We're building a muscle. It's the same thing with the practices that we incorporate, with rest, with breath work, right? We have to do this over time, and then it becomes more natural, right? And then it begins like, oh, it feels like, oh, I was holding my breath before all that time. Yeah, and you're incorporating breath and rest as a practice of repetition. And so just noticing what shifts, right? When rest becomes something that you practice, not something that you have to earn. This is something very deep that I've had to unlearn. I don't have to push myself past a certain point and then I receive rest as the reward. Right? No. Carving out space for yourself to rest, to breathe as a repetitive practice over time versus waiting for someone else to hand it to you. Right? Because unfortunately, in the society that we live in, rarely will that ever happen. But that doesn't mean that we can't carve it out for ourselves, right? And thank you to Roshini, who will be a special guest facilitator during my program, Rested and Restored. Her YouTube channel is Glamazini, right? Who said this, right? It is so important to remember. And let's move into practice 2. So rest as movement. And if you watch my previous rest practice, we did something similar, right? But a lot of times we tend to tense up. We tend to hold tension within our bodies as a stress response, right? Our bodies go into protective mode. So recognizing that, right, that we are in unsafe environments very often. And our bodies are trying to protect us within these spaces, right? And so they may go into that survival mode. And we can also, right, once we feel safe, once we're in a place where we can let the guard down, to invite in rest, to invite in movement, to allow the energy to flow through us. So especially after experiencing trauma or overwork, stillness can feel unsafe. A lot of times when we think about rest, we equate it with stillness, right? But rest can also be movement. Rest can also be breath work, right? All these things are restful for our bodies, right? So resting through movement just means inviting in gentle, rhythmic, safe motion that says to our bodies, it's okay to release the energy that was stored, right, throughout the week, throughout the month, maybe throughout the year. And so you're inviting in this rest practice for your body through movement. So starting with your shoulders, I actually want to put on some music real quick. Let me see how this works. Let me share my screen real quick. Okay, so hopefully you can still hear me over it. Let me turn it down just a little bit. So starting with your shoulders, right? Letting them rise with your inhale and drop with your exhale. So inhaling here, lifting your shoulders up to your ears as you inhale. And then as you exhale, allow your shoulders to drop. And invite in movement that feels good, right? As a rest practice. Again, rest does not have to be stillness. You don't have to immediately jump to stillness. If it doesn't feel safe, start with gentle movement to invite in rest to your body, right? Again, as you inhale, bringing your shoulders up to your ears and exhaling, allowing your shoulders to release. Notice how that feels. Again, inviting in movement as it feels good. Right, and moving to your neck if it feels good. Just slow, small movements here. Whatever feels good. If you're seated, if you're standing up, maybe just try swaying side to side, see how that feels. Allowing your body to find its own rhythm. Right, and so none of this has to look anyway. None of this has to be perfect. We're not performing in this space, right? Just allow yourself to be however the movement comes out. Just let it be. Hey, Karen, thank you for joining Resting Live on a Sunday evening. Thank you for this, Marissa. You're so welcome. Thank you for being here. Thank you. Okay, moving to your hands, right? So shaking your hands, see how that feels. Again, this is all about how it feels to your body. I know that I tend to carry a lot of tension in my hands, in my wrists, right? And sometimes I just have to do this, right? Just shake out your hands, letting your wrists feel loose, your breath flow to the places that you might be carrying tension. Notice how it feels. With any rest practice, right, you want it to feel good. That's the primary thing. It doesn't matter how it looks. How does it feel? If it feels right, rocking side to side, letting your spine roll softly. Again, telling yourself there's no right way to do any of this. We're not performing, right? So often in these spaces that we are in, there is an expectation to perform. But can you release that, right, in a place that you can exhale, right, coming within and telling yourself, oh, my worth is inherent, right? I can rest. Of course I can. Giving yourself permission, right? And if it feels scary, entering into it through things like movement, reminding yourself that rest is repetition. It's going to feel a little bit unnatural at first, especially if you've been in go mode for so long, but allowing yourself to do this in increments over time until it feels second nature, just like anything. So rest doesn't always have to mean stillness, right? Meditation doesn't always have to mean stillness, sitting there, turning your brain completely off. Meditation can be walking. Rest can be moving. So it's expanding your definition of rest. When you're ready, after you've invited in gentle movement, as it feels good to you, come back to just a moment of stillness and notice how your body feels. The sensations that your body feels. Our bodies are these highly intelligent vessels that are trying to send us all these signals constantly. And we have often been taught to ignore those signals, to turn them off, to view them as an inconvenience, to push through, right? So what would happen if you actually honored those signals, right? As a practice over time. If you allowed yourself to rest when you feel tired, instead of feeling pressure to push through. So some of the sensations you might be feeling, right? Warmth, tingling, feeling more spacious, maybe even emotions popping up. All of it is welcome. And also as we move, right, some of the emotions that may have been stored over time may pop up. And so leave space for them, right? You're not doing anything wrong, right? Your body now feels, I'm safe enough to honor this emotion that I had been feeling, that I had to suppress during the time. Thank you for this. Yes, it's so important for those of us who live in our headspace to incorporate movement into our rest routine. Thank you for this, Rihanna. Yes, it is. Yes, those of us who live in our headspace. Whew, I felt that. Especially being socialized within a society, right? That, again, shout out to Roshini, her YouTube channel is Glamazini, saying that we just live from the neck up so often, right? We live in our heads. That's why we're prone to overthinking. We're prone to catastrophizing because we're constantly in our heads. And so to incorporate movement, to have that energy flow throughout the rest of your body, so you can process it, right? What we've been carrying, what we've been storing. Come back to the other parts of our body versus just our head space. Thank you for this comment, yes. So I'm just taking a moment here. Just notice what's coming up without judgment. Notice how it felt Right, during the first practice, we went through repetition, breath work. The second practice, gentle movement. Notice how you feel now after doing the practices versus when we first began. Maybe you feel more connected to your body. Maybe you feel more grounded, clear. Just noticing what's popping up, again, without judgment, without the need for anything to appear perfect or perform for other people. Just allow that to release. And as we move into practice 3, again, I want to remind you, I will be facilitating a 5-week Okay, I think I'm back. But yes, I will be facilitating a 5-week healing program called Rested and Restored. It starts next Sunday, if you'd like to join us for practices similar to this, right? But they're 90-minute live circles that we will be meeting for over a 5-week period to do things like practice, right? How to do these things, how to rest, how to regulate your nervous system, how to establish boundaries so that you have the space within your life to rest, right? Sometimes saying no to some of the things that we feel like we can't can create this sense of fear. And so we kind of go back to doing what we know, right? Because again, our nervous system is used to overworking. So how do you come out of that pattern, right? Because logically, we know that we need to rest, we need to incorporate ease, but getting to that point is sometimes a difficult part. And so that's what I will be walking you through in this program that I've created called Rested and Restored. And yes, here's the link to enroll on the screen, also in the chat, also in the description. So please join us. Roshini, aka Glamazini, will be a guest facilitator on week 3, November 23rd. She'll be walking us through how to set embodied boundaries. So honoring our body signals to, right, carve out space for ourselves to things like say no and say yes to ourselves, which is especially needed during the holiday season. So there's the link to it. I'll remind you about that. Okay, let's get into practice. Rest as visualization. So moving in to rest, utilizing our imaginations. The imagination is very powerful when it comes to envisioning ourselves as this rested version, right, that we can see, that we're moving towards. Again, a lot of times our imaginations are cut off, they're harmed within these places that we operate in daily. And Tricia Hersey of the Nat Ministry talks so much about this, right? Your imagination is the portal to rest. Envisioning yourself as a rested person, right? As someone who moves with ease, centered in peace throughout this life experience. That is the power of visualization, right? And so we're going to practice that. So allowing your eyes to close if it feels comfortable, or simply lower your gaze. Wherever you are, make sure that you're comfortable, whether you're seated, whether you're standing, whether you're lying down. Picture yourself lying somewhere that feels soft and safe, maybe somewhere in nature, maybe under the sun, maybe floating. The air is gentle, the light is warm, and there's nowhere else to be besides here in the present moment. Thank you so much for this. Thank you. In this place, rest is not something you have to earn. Rest is not something that you have to fight for. Rest is not something that you have to ask permission for. It's simply yours. You give yourself permission to rest in this space that you're visualizing, that you're bringing into being. Feel your breath deepen. Feel the tension draining from your jaw, wherever you carry tension, your shoulders, your chest. Allow yourself to affirm, my worth is not measured by how much I produce. My worth is inherent. I am safe enough to slow down. I give myself permission to rest. Again, visualize this environment that you're in. If you've closed your eyes or simply lowered your gaze, and use your 5 senses to make it real. What do you see? What do you hear? What do you feel? Activate your senses as you are visualizing this image that's leading you towards, right, the rested version of yourself. The version of yourself who knows rest is your birthright. Rest is not something to be earned. Rest is something that preserves your life force. That you're allowed to breathe deeply in this space. You're allowed to feel grounded. You're allowed to move at your own pace. Right, and you're granting yourself permission to do these things in this space that you have visualized. Allowing what you have created to really solidify, right? You're bringing something into being. That is the power of visualization, right? Visualizing yourself resting in this safe place that you have created in your imagination. That no one can take from you. that you can always return to as a rest practice. You're creating an inner image of safety. Again, even if you never saw it modeled, you're creating it for yourself. You're reminding yourself that within the chaos of this world, externally, that you can come back to the place that you have created internally. This visual, right, where you're allowed to rest, where you're allowed to move at your pace, where you're allowed to feel at peace. And knowing that this is a practice that you can always return to, because it's something that you've created, right? Not something in someone else's hands. It exists within you now that you visualized it. In every step that you take, right? Every practice that you incorporate into your routine that feels restful, checking in with your body. How did I feel before? How do I feel after? That will tell you if it's restful, right? You're building this over time. As we talked about in the first practice, you're making this a pattern of repetition that your body can now recognize. So when you started, right, it may not have felt safe. You may have felt unsure, uncertain, scared. And through a practice, right, of incorporating things like we have done already, visualization, gentle movement, breath work, you're signaling to your body, I can feel safe and slow down. Right? It doesn't have to be this scary thing that it feels like when I first start, because I'm simply repeating these practices over time. Right? And it's going to feel natural. You're going to get to a point where this feels natural, where you're breathing deeply, right? Where you're allowing yourself moments of peace, where you're allowing yourself to rest without feeling guilty or that you should be doing something else or that you need to be productive, right? These things were learned over time throughout our lives. That also means that they can also be unlearned. And we can come back into the truth that we've always known: we have to rest. And so if you're here, let me know how that felt. Rest as visualization. I haven't seen this particular practice in a lot of places, but it can be very powerful, right? To visualize yourself resting and then working towards that vision, right, in the physical. A lot of times we have to create something within our imagination first in order for us to be like, oh, this is possible, right? I can see it, I can visualize it, and now I'm moving towards that vision through steps over time, right? It doesn't have to be overnight. It doesn't have to be this rushed thing. You can trust that you are working and moving and resting towards that point that you haven't visualized. So moving on to our last practice, and thank you so much for being here live. I'm Marissa Price. I am a trauma-informed healing practitioner and rest facilitator. And so thank you so much for joining this live rest practice for Black women to slow down, to come back home to ourselves, to invite in things that are often denied to us within the society, within these systems that we live in. We are granting ourselves permission to do these things ourselves. Part of that is adopting a rest practice that feels good, coming back home to our bodies. Breathing, grounding, visualizing, moving, so that our bodies, right, eventually feel, oh, it's safe. I can tiptoe into this practice, right? I don't have to do a 2-hour nap to start off my rest practice if I've never taken a nap in 5 years, 10 years. No, you can invite in movement. That's also rest. You can visualize. That's also rest. You can take time in nature. That's rest. So all those things count. So thank you so much for being here. Oh, thank you so much. Yes, I'm going to run this back this evening before I go to sleep. Thanks, Marissa. You're welcome. Thank you for this. And thank you for the hearts, Kiana. Yes. Okay, let's get into practice 4, rest as stillness. Right? And so this is really the integration of what we practiced today, allowing our bodies to hold what we have learned. Okay, rest as stillness. Now that we have practiced rest through repetition, through movement, through visualization, we can gently tiptoe into stillness. So stillness can feel kind of uncomfortable, right? Sometimes kind of unfamiliar if you have been in survival mode for a long time. If you are used to equating, right, pushing through, going faster than the pace that your body's supposed to go at with safety, which it has to be said, these systems are set up to do that, right? To reinforce this idea that we have to push ourselves to be safe, right? And our bodies the entire time are trying to give us these signals. I need to slow down. I need to breathe. I need to rest. And we are socialized to push through, right? And so if you are carrying any like, this should be easier for me, just understand that, right? There's no blame needed, because we're all operating within these systems that are trying to literally do the opposite every single day. And that's why it is a point of resistance to rest, right? And so think about this practice of stillness, not about forcing yourself to be perfectly still, be perfectly quiet, but simply allowing space, right, in your mind, in your body, carving out time for yourself within your own life, letting your body rest in what we have reclaimed, right, through this practice. So if it feels good, settling into your seat wherever you're sitting, or if you're laying down, feeling the surface beneath you, feeling gravity holding you. No effort needed on your part, right? Something I have to remind myself of often. Gravity is holding me up. I can relax, right? I can release. Allow your breath to come and go naturally. If your mind wanders at any time, no judgment is needed. A simple phrase to repeat when this happens that might be helpful. I am here. I am safe enough to be still. I give myself permission to rest. Right? And so just allowing yourself to be still. Again, you do not have to be perfectly still. If movement comes to you, allow yourself to move. Right? This is a practice, again, of more of creating space for ourselves to be without the constant distractions of life. The alerts, the notifications, the emails, and just getting curious about what stillness feels like. When you give yourself a moment to be. Whatever arises during this practice, know that it's okay. Whatever emotions come up, just allow them to be without judgment, just noticing. Know that the body is learning safety through the practices that we have just walked through, right? Through repetition, through breath work, gentle movement, visualization, and now stillness. You're teaching your body that it's okay for me to slow down. It's okay for me to breathe. It's okay for me to relax. And so as we move to reflection, and if you're still in stillness, please feel free to stay there. But reflection, just noticing, inviting in gentle movement to your body, wiggling your fingers and toes, maybe stretching your arms, or if you're seated, swaying, rocking back and forth. Noticing what these practices felt like. How did it feel to slow down? How did it feel to breathe? And just sitting with that question. Right, and again, sometimes when we see rest practices, stillness, silence, it can create a response within us. And I've talked about this before, it's something I've had to move through, right, to try to push it away. Because these things typically were not associated with safety, right? And so what I've had to do is what we've just covered today. Through repetition, through practice, through being gentle with myself, right? Telling myself that this is not going to be perfect. I'm not searching for perfect. But these are exercises that I'm doing to remind myself that it is safe for me to slow down, right? You're creating new neural pathways within your brain. You're rewiring your brain, right? You're creating a pathway that now says rest can be safe. I can slow down and still be safe. I can take a deep breath and ground myself. That is within my authority. I can give myself permission, right? Versus how we are often socialized that we have to seek it outside of ourselves, that we have to wait until someone says it's okay. And that's again why this is a practice of resistance. Thank you to Tricia Hersey of the NAP Ministry. Rest is resistance, right? We're coming back into our full humanity. We're giving our bodies full oxygen levels. We're moving at our pace. We're tapping into the power of our visions. And all these things are accessible to us when we rest. And so another reflection question: which practice really had the most impact on your nervous system today? Was it repetition, right? So the pattern that we did with breathing, inhaling for 4, holding for 2, exhaling for 6, was a gentle movement. So swaying, rocking, doing circles with your hands, your wrist, right? Swaying your neck if that feels comfortable. Was it visualization? Visualizing yourself as the rested person, right? That you are moving towards in the environment that you created within your imagination? Or was it stillness? Allowing yourself to just be, right? To be in the present moment, to slow down. Which resonated with your body the most? And then what could it look like to give yourself just 5 minutes, maybe even starting at 2 minutes, 3 minutes of this rest each day, right? And allowing yourself, of course, it doesn't have to be every single day, but in the moments that you feel yourself having some of these body sensations that we experience, headaches, insomnia, right? Body aches, feeling like we're pushing ourselves past the brink and our bodies are gonna, right? Because the body, something I know, it can only go so far until it reacts, right, to us pushing through, trying to override its signals. And so if you can get to a place where before the crisis point occurs, you're incorporating a practice of slowing down, of movement, of visualization into your routine, right? The hope is that you don't reach that crisis point of your body saying, I can't go any further. Hey, Ayabo, it's always good to see you here. Thank you so much. Marissa, thank you for this. As your resident baby boomer, I agree that rest is resistance and a tool that we have not used nearly enough over the last 400 plus years. Thank you for this. Yes, rest is resistance. It is. Yes, thank you to Tricia Hersey for that. Yes. And again, if we think about, to your point, Ayabo, thank you so much. It's been centuries. Since these things have been told to us as off limits. And so we're not just healing individually, something I have to remind myself of. When it feels impossible or difficult, I'm healing generationally. So I'm not just healing me, I'm not just resting for me, right? I'm resting for an entire lineage, right, of my family who had rest taken from them, restricted. And so if you do feel that initial resistance, I think reminding yourself of that too may be helpful. It's not just you that you're resting for, right? It's generational healing, it's generational resting that we're doing when we do these practices. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Hey, Raw Homemade 1815, thank you for being here. Thank you for the emojis. Brianna says the breath work. For sure, breathing intentionally really helps me to slow down, turn inward, and focus on just breathing. Thank you for this. Yes. Ooh, yes. Breath work has been essential on this journey that I have been on of healing, of processing, of a lot of things, right? Breath work can really help you center, ground yourself. And it sounds so simple. I'm just taking a deep breath. But that's the thing I notice, right, the most. When I take a deep breath, the overwhelm that I was feeling before I took the deep breath, the sense of urgency that I was feeling, it dissipates. Like it just kind of disintegrates. And then I'm wondering, why was I feeling overwhelmed? Right? And that's the power of breath. Just taking a deep breath. And again, these are tools that exist within us. Breathing deeply, visualizing, movement, right? As you're able to, as it feels comfortable. These are things that we have access to within our bodies. So thank you for this. Yes. Oh, I love the emojis. Thank you, Karen. Yes. Ooh. And so again, I want to thank y'all so much for being here. And I do want to say, if your body felt something shift during this practice, again, I will be facilitating a 5-week group healing, small group healing program called Rested and Restored. This is a 5-week journey, right, for us to really learn how to rest, how to set boundaries, how to self-regulate as a practice, right? These materials are meant to be with you over a lifetime, to learn from, to grow with. That is how I view any of my healing programs, right? Because once we do these practices, right, over time, we can return to them and learn something new. And so this program includes 5 weekly 90-minute group healing circles, which I will be facilitating, integration guides to help you really integrate what we cover each week into your daily routine so that it feels accessible, it feels practical, doesn't feel like out there or scary, right? We're entering into these practices through the lens of nervous system, safety, and regulation. And so, yeah, please join us, Rested and Restored. I did link it in the description. Let me link it one more time in the chat if you'd like to join us. So yes, and just going over the weekly things that we will cover. So next week we'll start with listening to our bodies. How do we recognize our body signals? If we have been told to cut off ourselves from what our bodies are experiencing during the day, in these environments that we find ourselves in, how do we tune back in? How do we recognize when our bodies are stressed versus feeling joy, right? Versus feeling safe? How do we differentiate between our body signals? That's what we'll be covering in week 1. Week 2 will be focused on releasing survival mode, right? So unwinding these deeply ingrained patterns that are reinforced by the environments that we're in, of urgency, of overgiving, of overextending ourselves, of feeling exhausted and then feeling like we have to push through that exhaustion. Week 3, special guest facilitator Roshini, aka Glamazini, will be joining us for a session on embodied boundaries, right? So how do we say no to things that drain our energy with calm, with clarity, with self-trust? And then how do we say yes to the things that we really want to do at the same time? We'll be taking a pause on November 30th to give ourselves time to integrate, and also with the holidays. We'll come back on December 7th for Rest is Liberation. So reclaiming rest, softness, and pleasure as your birthright. And then we'll end the 5-week program with integration. How do we integrate what we've learned, anchoring, right, in this new information that we've gained, and then practicing grounding rituals for the time ahead, the months ahead, the years ahead. Again, I'm viewing this very much as a lifetime practice, and not just with me, but how can this be passed on to future generations, right? Because it's that vital, it's that important. As Ayabo mentioned, we're healing from centuries, right, of being told that rest is not for us, that slowing down is not possible, that we're not able to heed our body signals, right, without punishment. So these things are very real. And so again, giving yourself grace, compassion, if this feels new, uncertain, awkward, uncomfortable. And as we talked about in the first practice, this is just repetition, right? Your nervous system learns through repetition. So telling yourself through these practices that we went over, it's okay for me to rest. It's okay for me to visualize. It's okay for me to invite in movement, right? What we've done here is just build a toolbox for you to now refer back to. When you feel this sense of overwhelm, or like everything is out of your control, outside of you, you can come back to these practices as well. And I do want to say If cost is an issue, would you still like to join Rested and Restored? Send me an email, hello@marissaprice.me for sliding scale options. And with that, I want to thank y'all so much for being here. Let me see if I can put this up real quick. Yes. So that is the full thing for Rested and Restored. I want to thank you for being here on the Sunday for practicing rest with me. And feel free to rewatch this video. Again, if you feel yourself in a moment of chaos, anxiety, you feel like everything is spiraling out of your control, knowing that you can always come back to yourself, right? To these practices that we talked about that exist within us. Breath work, visualization, right? Gentle movement. It may sound simple on the surface, but as we practice today, you'll notice the before and after, right? The impact is huge. Notice how you felt before you started this practice versus now. And that gives you the information, right, to continue these as they feel good. As you notice moments of chaos pop up, which life inevitably brings, what you've done is built a toolbox for you to now refer back to, right? To pick out a tool, to pick out a visualization, to pick out a breathwork practice to return to ground yourself in an internal sense of calm, right? And so thank you so much for being here. Yes, you're so welcome, Karen. Thank you so much, Marissa. Great to be a part of a rest community. Thank you for this. Much appreciated. Thank you so much for being here. Right, and so closing, let me get back to my, okay, that's fine. Closing, just with a few affirmations. 3 breaths. We're going to inhale a word and we're going to exhale a word and see how that feels. So inhaling, liberation. Exhaling, striving. Inhaling, worthiness. Exhaling, pressure. Inhaling, freedom. Exhaling, performance. And as we wind down today, know that resting is not wrong. Resting is for you. Resting is remembering. And you can give yourself permission to rest. And so I appreciate you all for joining me so much on the Sunday. Once again, please join us inside Rested and Restored. You can always send me an email for sliding scale options, hello@marissaprice.me. I don't want cost to be a barrier. And so please join us starting next Sunday for week 1 as we talk about how do we listen to our body? How do we know our stress signals? How do we know our safety signals? Where do we even begin this rest practice or slowing down? That's what we'll be talking about next Sunday, starting at 5 p.m. Eastern, for our first live healing circle through Rested and Restored. So let me put the link in the chat to join once again, and it's also in the description. Yay, thank you for this. It was needed. Even for me as a facilitator, right? When I do these practices myself, when I facilitate through them, I'm also having to practice it myself. And so the moments where I feel like chaotic, the sense of anything, all the things that I talk about, I experience myself. And just reminding myself through facilitation, right? That I can come back home to myself, that I can slow down, that my worth is inherent, it's not outside of me. And that I can give myself permission to rest. So I appreciate this feedback. Thank you so much, Kiana. All right, y'all. I hope you have a beautiful rest of your Sunday. And I'll probably be going live later this week to talk about some other topics around rest. But I appreciate you being here. And until next time, y'all. Bye. Thank you.